All right, plenty to get through now. Joining me, One Nation Leader Pauline Hanson and former Speaker of the House, Bronwyn Bishop. Great to see you both. Now, let's talk about the coalition. Obviously, they chose their leader this week, Sussan Ley. She's not hardly a firebrand conservative by any means. She's been accused of being Labor light. Pauline, I want to ask you, Sussan Ley has pretty much risen without a trace over a quarter of a century in Parliament. There was a kind of dancing like Tina Turner event stunt at one point. That's pretty much it in terms of a couple of travel rorts issues. But what do you know of Sussan Ley, and do you think the coalition are splitting? Or will they find policies that they work together on? And is there any chance we could even see them talk about abandoning net zero?
Well, I'm just the same as a lot of the public. They wouldn't have a clue who Sussan Ley is. They haven't really seen much of her. They don't hear much from her, apart from doing her stint every week on Sunrise. Apart from that, I don't think she's played much of a role in it. I don't have a lot of confidence in her, but I congratulate her on being appointed as the first female to lead the opposition, the coalition party. I think there's going to be problems within Rowan. I think that there's going to be, now the Nats have actually kept all their seats, Libs have lost their seats, they don't have the upper hand with the numbers in the Parliament, that the Nats are wanting to say, hey, hang on a minute, we're going to really talk seriously about policy. Now, the Nats definitely want to get out of net zero. I think there's could be a break for the make or break for the coalition, because the National Party have forgotten their grassroots, and that's the people in rural and regional areas have gone out along with what the coalition, what the Liberal Party have wanted. And the thing is, it was the Nats. I was the first one to come out against the Voice, then followed by the Nats. It took Dutton and the Liberal Party months before they came out against the Voice. So there are things that they're actually dragged along, kicking and screaming. Coal-fired power stations, net zero, also transmission lines. Where has been their stance about all this, about the renewables? They never did a decent campaign in this last election. So what I'll say, the Nats are more in line with One Nation's policies. And if they want to, if David Littleproud wants to come and talk to me about doing a coalition, I'll have no problem sitting down and having a talk with him, doing a coalition, because we're more in line with the same policies, what we want for the country.
Well, I think that's a great point. Are One Nation more in line with the Nationals now than the Liberal Party are, Bronwyn?
No. Look, when the Liberal Party was formed 81 years ago, and the Country Party, as it then was, declined to become part of the new party, it was decided that they would go into coalition, and they've been that way for 81 years. It's not about to change.
OK, let's talk about the Greens. We've got a new Greens leader. I think there are serious questions about whether the coalition can hold it together if they don't jointly abandon net zero, because that, in my opinion, is going to be the big issue going forward. And if you've got one part of the coalition who is hanging on to net zero and the other saying, no, we've got to get out of it, I think that's a major split, Bronwyn. So I'll repeat my question. Can the coalition survive that split on net zero?
Well, I think it can. There have been issues before where they'll take a different stance on something. Personally, I'd get out of net zero. I'd be out of the Paris Agreement, because 70% of the world isn't part of the Paris Agreement ambitions. So I don't know what we're doing down here thinking we're going to change the world. I mean, when we banned nuclear in that legislation, which I'm ashamed to say I voted for, we knew we had hundreds of years of coal in the ground and nobody worried about it, because that's what we use. So I think there is plenty of room and plenty of discussion about how we're going to maintain keeping the lights on and keeping industry powered, because quite simply, intermittent power can't do it.
Pauline, you work in the Senate with the Greens and with the new Greens leader, Larissa Waters. How much of a threat do the Greens remain, given that they still hold sway? They may have gone from the lower house, and Adam Bant may be gone, but there's still a force in the Senate where you operate. Is that true?
They are. The Labor Party is going to need their votes in the upper house to get the legislation passed. So that hasn't changed at all. It was more destructive when they had to get David Pocock and Jackie Lambie and Lydia Thorpe or some of the other crossbench to actually support them as well. So let's see how it pans out, how many they end up with in the Senate, because that count is still going on at the moment. Larissa Waters, you know, she's very un-Australian, you know, their views are also always connected with overseas. She goes on about climate change and she says the reef is dying, all the rest of it, yet she won't have a debate with Malcolm Roberts. She will not be, you know, debate the issues. She won't talk about the science of it, so because she doesn't know. It's just the same old rhetoric that they don't even know what the hell they're talking about.
Bronwyn, I want to ask you quickly about the unrealised capital gains tax, which Labor will now be pushing through. This is taxing people on earnings that they do not have. On fantasy earnings, the tax office says, oh, your super owns this or that property or shares or whatever. Oh, that could be worth X, Y and Z, so therefore we're going to tax you on it. This is insanity, isn't it? You mentioned it earlier.
Yes, it is. And indeed, in the campaigning that I did do during the campaign, what I absolutely concentrated on was the evilness of this proposed tax. And anybody who thinks that the Treasurer, who simply flaps the lips and out comes words without much meaning, thinks that once that tax is established inside superannuation, that it's not going to spread to becoming a wealth tax which they can apply willy-nilly. I said the idea came from Biden. It did. They don't seem to have much originality in their thinking. They've just picked up the Democrats' policies. But here, the danger of that tax is enormous because it means that people who have to pay it will have to sell assets to pay the tax. Now, in a market where it could be suppressed, you could have a situation where shares might go up in one financial year and drop in the next financial year. And you get a pathetic bit of paper that says one day maybe you can offset that loss. So, and after all, their proposal is also that the Australian Tax Office will determine the value. Now, if that fills you with confidence, it sure doesn't fill me with confidence.
It sounds like reverse capitalism to me, Pauline.
Well,
it sounds
exactly
like communism, reverse capitalism. Very quickly, Pauline, just what will One Nation do to try and stop this tax?
Look, Rowan, they've got control of the parliament. This is what people voted for. This is what you're going to be stuck with. We're heading down the socialist path. So you're going to kill the goose that lays the golden egg. Those people who want to work and support themselves in the future, we're actually denying them that right. That we are so heavily taxed in this country that I'm sick and tired of it. We keep taxing those people who get out their work, get an education, who actually want to pay their way, and they keep taxing them all, and you let the people who want to sit on their backsides, not work, they made themselves unemployable and they don't want to work, and we're propping them up every which way. You prop them up with health, with rent assistance, you give them the welfare payment, which they never investigate. We give them year in, year out. As far as I'm concerned, 2 out of 5 years you get welfare. Work the other 3 out of the 5. We've got to start changing the whole system. Our welfare bill this year is going to be $293 billion with a revenue that we have coming in of $700 billion. Yet we're going to pay out nearly $300 billion in welfare payments. We can't survive on that, Rowan.
Absolutely.
We're heading for disaster.
Heading for disaster. Absolutely. Pauline Hanson and Bronwyn Bishop, thank you so much for coming on.